All right, well, thank you all for coming. Thank you for sticking around, and let's let Todd and Lucian get started.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming out. It's super cool. There's a lot of people here. Staring at Jay, my partner, and Ella. It's pretty awesome. Cheers. So we're going to kind of blaze through our history, our philosophy, show you guys some work, talk a little bit about Hello, a big project of ours right now that we're very excited about and putting a lot of passion towards, and quite committed to. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and then open it up to questions, because we like to keep these things general. It's hard to specify. We don't know what people might want to hear, learn, or ask us. So without further ado, I'm Todd Berger. This is my partner, Lucian Föhr, and we'll start moving through this thing. So we're a graphic design studio based in Boulder, Colorado. We like to call what we do practicing contemporary visual communication. Our general philosophy is very informed by the past and inspired by the future. So we spend a lot of time studying the history of graphic design, the history of graphic communication, the history of the internet, the history of how people think and digest words and visuals and graphics to inform our approach, so we can put forward worthwhile work that advances visual communication. We employ a comprehensive methodology, rich in dialogue, rooted in experience and intuition, to create lasting, considered work. So we consider our work very closely. It's very intuition-driven. It's very experience-driven. We'll talk about that here in a second.
Like Todd said, we're going to cover these topics. Starting with a brief history. Todd's been doing this since 1997. I joined him in 2003. It was 11 years ago. This is roughly how far apart we've been sitting for the last 11 years. This is in our previous studio, but we stick to the 16 inches.
So our workflow is really based on the idea of singularity. So Lucian and I aren't working independently. We're working as one. We realized that that's where our value was a long time ago, to merge our thought and our ideas and our capacity to create visual experiences and communicate visual ideas. So our process is very much focused on a oneness, or what we like to refer to as a singularity, and that expands throughout all of our work. We only present our client one solution, one singular thought, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit, but that's the general thinking behind singularity in our studio.
If you kind of tell, this image is a merger of the two of us, and that's sort of the visual manifestation of singularity and everything driving to this point. So for us, it's not about who's clicking the mouse that makes the work. We both make everything as one. We're very principle-based on a logistical level. We're a certified B corporation, and we are also a 1% for the Planet member. That means we donate 1% of all of our gross profit to nonprofits. And each year we pick who to distribute those to. Typically we keep them in our community, related to the outdoor activities that we enjoy. Being the B Corp, to get the certification, you have to go through a fairly rigorous process and uphold social and environmental best practices.
So this graphic here just sort of represents our larger gestalt-based thinking, if you will. Everything we're doing is really, we're always focusing on the larger environment around us, so the built environment and the natural environment, and we're particularly focused on where those two spaces meet and what happens at their junction. We have a really strong commitment as a studio to doing everything we can to protect the natural environment and to advance the built environment in a beautiful way that we believe is valuable to everyone around us and mankind as a whole.
In our studio, we talk a lot about the word objectivity, and it's a hard subject because as humans, we're fairly subjective. But we strive with all of our clients to get to a place of objectivity, which means judgment based on observable phenomena and uninfluenced by emotions or personal prejudices. And that will be revealed in our process.
And that's hard because we have subjective opinions about the aesthetic we like to put forth into the world, but we believe that those subjective opinions are informed by objective criteria, if you will. If anyone wants to talk about that later, we could get into that a bit more. So our process is we have a process. This is from an anonymous agency owner that, well, this was the last project we did for an agency, 2010. So we were in a boardroom. I had some agency owners screaming at me, telling me there's no fucking process. I'm saying there's a fucking process, you're fucking wrong, went back and forth. Needless to say, that was the last time we did that. So we do have a process. It's pretty simple. It's the same thing every time. We get a work inquiry, we follow up via email, phone, or video. If we're interested after that, we schedule some sort of meeting, typically in the form of a video presentation at this point because most of our clients are out of town. At that point, if we're interested in the work, we provide our brief request to the client. They respond to the brief. We review the brief. If after reviewing the brief we want the project, it's something we're interested in, we create a proposal, we set the terms of the contract for that given project, and assuming they accept them, we receive a deposit. From there, and this is pretty typical shit, just maybe some of you are interested in it. The project commences, we go into this phase that we call immersion, and in that phase we're not really working. It's just Lucian and I talking a lot. Owen Dodd works with us right now. He's our assistant designer. So Owen, excuse me, is very involved in that process. So it's a lot of talking and sitting and waiting for the right idea to come. And our project schedules and calendars allow for this. At the point we believe we've honed in on the direction we're going to take, we start working in a pretty singular fashion. We prepare a presentation. Oftentimes our presentations take more time than the making of the work. We sell through the work gets approved, and we get paid. And then that cycle happens over and over again, fortuitously, hopefully, that's the theory. So this simple pie chart is pretty representative of how the studio operates. It's a whole lot of thinking and a little bit of making. Maybe not as much making as most people would think.
One bad client can fuck up everything. There's only two of us, well, three of us with Ellen, and so this is a lifestyle, not just our job. And so if we get a bad apple in there, it pretty much fucks up our lives. So through the years, we've become very rigorous about who we let into our lives, and it's sort of a sliding scale on how awesome their project is and how awesome they are. If the project is super awesome and they're less awesome, they might make it in. If the project sucks but they're really awesome, they might make it in. We try to strike a happy balance. Recently we've had only awesome clients, and we believe firmly that good clients bring good clients, and bad clients will only bring bad clients. So we're going to go through some work. We're going to go fast because we want to get to the last topic here. A lot of this is unpublished and recently approved. This one was a large textile manufacturer. They were based in Taiwan, but they had offices in China and Indonesia. And that was one of our larger international projects. We haven't been able to publish this one much because all the print collateral got made in Taiwan, and we don't have any of it to photograph. So we're working on how to solve that problem. The last month we had 3 identity projects that started with the word C. The letter C. And we haven't shown any of these. These are all recently approved. We have Chewy, which we can't talk too much about, but it's facial recognition, hence the smiling U. Choice Map, which is an app based on making objective decisions, is a good fit. and Corporate Wellness Is, which is an independent wellness consultant for large corporations. So that was interesting, getting a lot of C's all at once. We also had Game Theory, which is in Vermont. They not only produce iOS games, but they also incorporate the idea of gamification into business strategy. And then Todd Reed, one of the larger clients of Boulder. He's a jeweler. He's credited with inventing the raw diamond aesthetic, and he's opening a new studio in Venice, California. We recently rebranded all of his work, and we're building a website right now. Black Belly chef Jose Rosenberg, he won Top Chef, and now he's opening a restaurant in Boulder and a catering business. We do have some photos of some of his collateral. We only chose to include one right now. My father's an author, and we get to design all his book covers. This was his latest. We recently launched BMocha's new website. We do all the work for the museum, Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art. This rebrand happened years ago now, and it was a long process to finally get them a new website. We built this with Grant Blakeman in Boulder. It's great, the museum's doing very well. This website's still under development, but we have a demo that we can click through. This is an architecture firm in New York. Deborah Burke is the chair of architecture at Yale. And this site's going to be great. Still in development, also with Grant Blakeman in Boulder. We recently did a series of prints, t-shirts, tote bags, onesies, sweatshirts for, I don't forget the name,
Sandstorm, independent artist design works and wares. Thanks, man. So this was a series of prints that got turned into all sorts of other garments. It's pretty cool. Carte blanche. This was, so we didn't get into this. We also make a lot of art alongside our client-based focus. We make art for us to exercise our own aesthetic principles and as a way for Lucian and I to produce work that doesn't require a brief. Doesn't require a client brief. We create the concept, we produce the work. This is the first of what we hope to be many lithographs that we produced with Bud Shark. Bud is an exceptional lithographer. He's regarded as one of the best living lithographers in the world. He happens to live in Lyons, Colorado. We're getting ready to do a whole nother series of lithographs with Bud in the near future. Yeah, excuse me, this was commissioned by BMocha in commemoration of the flood and the flood relief in Boulder. So late in his life, towards the end of his career, we were very fortunate to have Massimo Vignelli reach out to us, and he became a friend in the last year of his life. He'd always been an inspiration to us. Somehow he stumbled upon our work and reached out and told us that he appreciated it and admired it, and that he wanted to include us in an exhibition he was producing of young American graphic designers in Italy alongside young Italian graphic designers. There's a little more to that story, but when Massimo passed fairly out of the blue, he got ill just after his 84th birthday, and it looked like he was going to recover, but he didn't come out of it. We decided to produce a series of prints commemorating his life and his influence on us. So we designed a series of 10 prints using Massimo's 10 favorite typefaces, and these prints actually went into production today. The screens are getting prepared tomorrow. You guys can all read them, but I'll go through them just to reiterate these principles because they're important to us. There is no design without discipline. There is no discipline without intelligence. Design is one. Clarity of intent will translate into clarity of result, and this is of paramount importance in design. Styles come and go. Good design is a language, not a style. Semantic, syntactic, and pragmatic. That was a philosophy that Massimo lived by. Whatever we do, if not understood, fails to communicate and is wasted effort. The life of a designer is a life of fight against ugliness. Creativity needs the support of knowledge to be able to perform at its best. Without a knowledge of the past, there is no understanding of the present and no foundation of the future. Design is a marvelous mission. Go out, spread the word. It is your turn now. So we designed all those prints based on our own rendition of Massimo's Unigrid that he designed for the National Parks communication system. That's what the grid on that page is. This is another piece of art, a print that we did for commission for Editions of 100, which is the limited edition print arm of Freytag Anderson, a very esteemed design studio in Scotland. And then one last piece of work. This is a mural we've been working on. It looked like it was going to happen and fell through last minute, but we really liked it, so we thought we'd show it to you guys.
So if you have a wall that needs painting, we have a mural that's been designed.
Ready to go.
So now we're going to move on. Oh, go ahead.
So, before you guys move on to Ello, now that we've seen your work for everyone that's not familiar, would you guys care to talk more about your history and how that has educated Berger and Föhr and what you did with your studio? And I guess like how have those lessons from what you did in the past educated your new foundation? And how has this translated into your work and in Ello?
So this is our third studio together. I was an intern at Todd's first studio, and then we had Cypher 13, which had, at one point, had many more people and a third partner. And during that work, you know, we presented the typical multiple options, but one thing that we always, before every presentation, we picked our favorite and we sold that fucker through. So the others were clearly a waste of our time, and it was our belief that it wasn't the client's decision. They want to make the best decision. They're not the expert. So why give them that decision when we're the experts and we're going to make that decision? So it was actually a pretty long process to get down to the one solution, and it took us many years and figuring out how to best make those presentations, how to sort of prep the client. A lot of clients, when they show up, they don't expect that that's what's going to happen, and building their expectation that they're only going to get one at the end of this, and if they don't like it, they might have to buy another one. That can be a tricky conversation sometimes, but it's getting easier every time.
Did that start to answer your question?
Yeah.
I could elaborate a bit, but maybe if you were more specific.
That's the direction I was going. I guess what have you done in the past, and why is that important to like Berger and Föhr right now? How do you guys do things differently, and what's the purpose behind it? How does that show in your work that you're doing now?
So the studio sort of exists on two planes, and because this is mostly designers, I'm comfortable saying this. The first plane is our plane. It's for us to grow as individuals and designers and experiment. Sorry about that. Yeah. So two planes. So the studio's first for us, and it's for our clients second, because if it doesn't fulfill our needs, we can't produce the sort of work we want to produce for our clients. And coming back to the one solution thing, we've gotten pretty good at selling through one solution, and that's not a cop-out or about taking shortcuts. It's really about focusing and leveraging our experience and our intuition and our skills on behalf of our clients, and not leaving decisions up to them that would be better left up to us. So when we present one solution, sometimes we believe that solution is near perfect. We don't always believe that. We always believe that it's very, very, very fucking good. And we're willing to challenge any of our clients to put anyone up against us in any situation when we're presenting a solution. That's not to say it couldn't be done better or different with more time or more money. So the one solution is also a function of the budget and the time and the goals of the project. Maybe that elaborates a little bit on that.
Also,
So our practice is kind of multifold. We focus on identity, we focus on print collateral, we focus on web design and experience, and then we make art. And all four of those things inform one another to a very large degree, and we believe it's important that we do all four of those things to stay current and relevant and good at our craft. So Lucian's sort of roving around the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, and you know, we got to push the limits a little bit, but this is a contemporary art museum in Boulder. While we'd like to think Boulder is a pretty forward place, it is in some ways, not in others. We pushed the limits to a large degree and played it sort of safe where we thought we had to, but the website has really driven engagement in the museum, and the museum's numbers are super up, and things are going really well, and they're really stoked. And Lucian mentioned Grant Blakeman. We build a lot of our websites with our friend Grant Blakeman. We have a very cool, collaborative, fun process in working with Grant. Yeah, Andrew.
One thing I've always wondered about this site, the last one you were on, is it's going to sound a little, I guess, dirty anyway. It's like, what are the analytics around that piece right there? Do you guys find people actually click those? Do you find that those are actually?
Yeah, you know, you're talking about the circle?
Yeah, it's just like, it's a weird thing that like, you're the first one I've ever seen it done.
Totally weird thing. We didn't borrow it from anyone. We thought it would be cool. With the logo's a square, we wanted to juxtapose it against a circle. Hours of operation, price, that stuff is super important when you're trying to visit a museum. So we came up with a way to solve that on the desktop and the mobile experience that was unique and interesting, and then built kind of a circular motif around it. So there's a few scenarios, like there's one experience where I think you could have 3 circles out at once that you could move around.
Third circle is...
And we've got a 4th coming, it's in Subscribe, I think.
Is that working? Like,
It's working, you know, people are saying they like it. At first, the director of the museum, David, was kind of like, what the fuck are you guys doing? There's all these circles, you can't close them. And we're like, well, it's a museum of contemporary art. There's a lot of things you probably shouldn't do, but if there was any environment to do it in, this is the environment. So, you know, we kind of stood our ground, and we like it. It's different, it's cool, it's memorable. I can't tell you about the analytics. Yeah.
What do they say when they're minimized? I can't get it.
So when the hours is minimized, it says museum info.
Okay. It's sort of.
This one says key.
Yeah.
I'm scared to click this one because I think it'll disappear forever. But yeah, for that, like in that context, in terms of the analytics, it sounds messed up, but we almost don't care. Because, like, this is what the museum wants to communicate to you. It was the top priority in terms of information hierarchy, so you can move the fucking circle. Or you can close the circle and make it smaller and move it, but we're not on the level on this where we're not testing people to see if they can't figure out how to close the circle. You know, that's right for some clients, but the Museum of Contemporary Art Boulder is not that place.
open a little more. It's,
They also don't have the budget to support serious metrics analysis.
I'm curious, you say it's the most important information, but it's one of those things that like, what if no one clicks it?
It starts open.
Okay.
You can get to it in the footer. It's the first thing that loads in a mobile experience. So,
Every time you come, it'll be in a different spot, randomly generates. So it's hard to miss it. We'll quickly go through this on the site. This has been a cool process working with them. They're one of the more considered clients. All their feedback is incredibly considered, to the point where they didn't like all the controls and captions in their slideshow, so they had to disappear when you roll off, because Deborah specifically liked how the page looked without it, but conceded that it was somewhat useful at times. And then we did some cool stuff with their work section. This also will randomly load this grid with the missing sections. And then as you sort, it'll push one, it'll fade out and then reorganize.
something interesting like this grid. I mean, it's always missing a unit in every row just to help set the pace and help the viewer consume the work. The work is genius, it's really good. And we just didn't want to fill the grid because it would get too dense and it would be overwhelming and it would be hard to focus on things. So this is we'll drop this site pretty soon. It's close. This is in the dev environment. We probably shouldn't be showing some of this stuff, but it's okay. Was that the last site experience? Did you have a question over there?
Yeah. I promise I'm not asking about process, but I am really curious about what is most important to you, like most meaningful and productive as far as gathering insights.
So our insight gathering process differs from client to client. It's a function of budget. We think it's super important. We'd like to spend tons of time gathering insights when people are willing to pay us to do so. So in this case, Deborah Burke was probably 2 half-day video type meetings and then 1 full day in New York with all the partners and the staff. And that was really enough to decide how we were going to handle this, and then we stepped back and presented them some work. But it's super important to us. Our brief process tends to cover a lot of it. And take that with a grain of salt too, because we're only really seeking projects that last somewhere between 3 and 9 months at the max. We're pretty small. We don't really want to, with the exception of a project like Elo that's ours, that we're the product owners, that we're working on with Modsad, like that's a different situation. But our client work, our commissions, we don't really want to last more than 3/4 of a year. So there's only so much insight we can do because there's only so much budget. Like a big project for us caps out at about 150 grand. We don't really want to take a project bigger than that because we'd have to be a bigger studio and we'd have to have more bodies, and we've grown once and then we've ungrown, and we're not interested in having more bodies. We're interested in what happens when we work together and what we get to make as a team and the influence we can have on the world and the larger environment together. Like, rather than worrying about running a business and paying a bunch of people and having a bunch of employees, we're not looking to do that. So that sets some healthy boundaries for us, I guess, to be very frank about numbers and time.
Anybody have questions before we move on to Elo? And then I'll try to fix this real quick. And we'll just do informal questions on a quickie, and then we'll move on to Elo. That's great, Meta.
Well, let's do the intro.
Well, yeah, we're going to switch topics. If there's any questions about anything we covered so far, let's do it.
Anybody? Go ahead. There's literally.
Where do you most specifically strive for objectivity, and what's the objective criteria that you mentioned earlier?
So so we tried to blaze through the first part, so we definitely left a lot of stuff out. One thing we left out is every project we do starts with identity. So we don't take any projects where we're not going to do the identity. There are a few exceptions. For example, that Deborah Burke website, we didn't do their identity, but another famous designer did. And so we are willing to inherit identities if we believe they're good, which is rarely the case. So we start with identity with every project, which also limits our scope, where it has to be a new business or a rebrand.
Yeah, so the identity thing is identity is so central to all of our work that if we don't believe the identity put forth can provide a foundation for growth and to build, just to be built upon and communicate the ideas of whoever the entity is we're working with in the appropriate way, we can't take the work. So typically we want to do that, so that's why we start with identity. I totally lost the point of the quote.
And then back to objectivity. So we start that sort of foundation based on objectivity. So a lot of that brief is spending time with that client, talking a lot, and basically striving for a shared language. So through that, so the whole point of the objectivity and in the end is through feedback, because if we're going to receive feedback from the client, we want to try to empower them to be objective in their feedback. Because if at the end they say we don't like this, we don't like blue, we don't care, because blue might be the best option. So it's through that, but if they can be at the end say, well, we don't think it meets these objectives that we set forth as a team in the beginning of this project, then we're totally willing to hearing that, because that means we fucked up. And so those long presentations are taking it like decision by decision, why we made this decision based on to strive for these goals that we've all set out. So the objectivity is really about getting to a shared place where we can all talk about it, which is just getting to like a good place to communicate.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
So I had one more question about your process. Sorry. But I was wondering, once you have your proposal and then you decide to accept the project and then decide to accept the deposits that you get, at that point, do you feel kind of imprisoned by your initial proposal? Because another step that comes after that is your version step.
So we never propose what we're going to do. We propose that we're taking your project for X amount of dollars and we'll come up with a solution that we think is great.
Yeah.
We don't do any work until we've got money. We think about the project and we discuss it and we think about the client, we think about how what the alliance with the client says about us as individuals and about our studio and what sort of work we can bring to them. And then if it's something we want to engage in, then we start to think about the work. But we have an inkling. We already know that we can solve this problem and it's an interesting problem to us. Or it's not even a problem, it's a creative opportunity and it's one we're excited about. But there's no, we're not proposing a direction because we don't know what direction we're going to take yet.
So along those lines, we don't respond to RFPs and we don't do spec work, so you have to pay for us to work. And at the end, if you don't like it, you can part ways and do it again.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, so you give these people a proposal, it doesn't have a ton of details about what you're going to do. So when you respond to those with your project price, you know, is this project price based on the time you expect you're going to spend, or is it based on the value you think that you're going to create, or is it
Part of our
our
brief process is asking them very seriously and very frankly what their budget is. And we don't take we don't know. If you don't know, we don't work with you. If you're not willing to think about how much money you're ready to spend with us, you're not taking the project serious enough. So based on what they're willing to spend, that really dictates the approach we're going to take. Because we can't take a $10,000 identity client into the space of a super dynamic, like totally morphing logo type symbol combination that changes in every environment for that budget when they have X number of pieces of collateral, etc. So the scope defines the budget and we assess what the scope is before we prepare the proposal.
And internally you have your limitations, you know, it's not going to...
Yeah, and it's pretty realistic. Like we're talking about hours and time and like we know how our ideation process happens. And, I mean, we're always working, even when we're not in the studio. Like we ride bikes together, we're outside a lot together. Like the dialogue's running all the time, so we don't even always have to be working to really be working. Sometimes Lucian's just like, this is what it should be. And I'm like, you're right, that's what it should be. And I'm like, it should be this. And so we build in the time for the thing to happen. And I know this, I don't know how to elaborate on it. We've just done it for a long time together. And like, we don't really stress about the creative part. The idea will present itself in time as long as we're immersed and committed to thinking about what it is we're trying to do. And I'm not saying like we're geniuses, that's just like, that's a process, it's a system that we've made, that's how the studio works, so the idea just comes, it's the whole cycle. We sort of have to work on a lot of things at once to keep the cycle perpetuating for the next idea to come. But the idea gets constrained by the budget, for sure.
I would say a little more specifically too, I would say on the scope of the work we do, the identity phase is not hourly, that's value. But we can get into more hourly situations, like revisions on an app UI, for example. But the identity, just because, like Todd said, we've been doing it for a while, it can come quickly. So we would be selling ourselves very short if we did identity on an hourly basis.
And the counter to that is like, every once in a while we screw ourselves a little bit.
So, that's a pretty, I guess, not something you guys are
fucked. I mean, the advertising world says we're going to propose a bunch of bullshit to you that we're never going to do, we probably can't do, the technology probably doesn't exist, we're going to make up a number. So in essence, we're going to lie to you and get you excited, and then we're going to say, no, 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 we can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that, here's what we can really do. So we're not going to do that. We're going to say we're going to come up with something very feasible and very functional and very realistic that's going to work really well, and here's how much it's going to cost. But our minds work well in this space, and they're not going to work for you until you pay us. It's pretty simple.
There's a really good book that describes basically everything you guys have said you do with your studio called The Design Method by Eric, I don't really know how to pronounce his last name, but it's The Design Method, and it basically breaks down in detail how to make what they do work, where they're only doing one concept, you know, and it's really going to be the fastest formula for anything that they're going to need.
So the one concept thing, we're not working on one concept. We're honing in. We're only presenting one concept because we've decided that's the best idea. We're not working in a vacuum where, you know, ideas are bubbling up, we're discussing them, we're sketching them, but we're striving to hone in, I guess. So Gustavo, to answer your question, I just feel like our process makes more sense. It's more honest. It's totally transparent. It's just honest and genuine and real, and we don't make up shit and then say we can't do it. We say, go ahead.
And I think we haven't worked with anyone else, ever. So we haven't worked for anyone else. So we have no idea how a lot of other people do this. So we came to this on our own, and it works for us, and yeah, maybe everyone, we don't think, well, we know a little bit because we receive clients that have dealt with other people, so we receive feedback that way. You know, and yeah, the agency experience.
And just a quick follow-up on that, I guess. You said you've been at the ass by the way you guys do stuff sometimes. So, like, what's some of the things that, some like the adversities that you face while, you know, staying true to your principles?
Well, sometimes we have to run things a little hot in terms of how many projects we have at a time. A lot of times that number is like 12, and for two of us that can get hectic. And so sometimes we can simply fuck up the scheduling and things. That would be one adversity, that we
Work hard.
Yeah, we cross that bridge when we get there. A few times, because of sort of the moral standings of the studio, we've had to fire clients because they made it through our filtering, and we only realized later that they were disingenuous or their business wasn't what we thought. And so we've had to literally give people their money back. So sometimes that can be hard because we're small and sometimes we need some money.
Yeah, once in a while, we like right now, to be fully transparent, we had to freeze a client on a pretty big project because they're pretty far behind in paying, and we can actually afford to keep going, but it's purely a principle thing. They have been setting very rigorous deadlines for us for 6 months. We've been meeting them all, and then they blew 4 of ours in a row, and we said, you know what? We're moving on and doing other things, and they really don't have any rebuttal for that. It sucks doing that. We'd like to keep going, and they'll pay us. It'll be fine. But that's kind of realistic. Once in a while, the identity sell-through is tricky. We're pretty good at it. And again, we don't sell it through on a whim. If we really believe in it, we'll fight for it. If we're proved wrong in our approach, we'll happily reconsider it.
I would say sometimes through that briefing process, the client actually doesn't divulge everything, not intentionally or not. And through our presentation, they realize that solution wasn't the right solution, but because of shit they never told us. So that comes up sometimes, and that's kind of a bummer for everyone. So we try to like really, the last question we added to the brief is, there is one thing you're not telling us, because it seems so obvious to you. Tell us that.
Yeah, and that ends up often being the thing that causes a problem, and then we prepared for it. But we weren't doing that 2 years ago. That what's the thing that you think is a given, that it's a given internally to your business, that's not a given to us, like think about that thing and share it with us, because it might be the most important thing. Yeah, Chris?
So what's Ella?
Oh yeah, okay, so we'll get into Ella. Is that cool? We can do more questions later. Is everyone, are we boring anyone? Is this, like, cool? Okay. So, you jump forward then? Okay, so before this. So almost, I'm going to do the history real quick. Was that your thinking? Okay, so we have a good friend named Paul Budnitz. Paul Budnitz founded a company called Kid Robot. As he was in the midst of selling Kid Robot, he was moving from, he'd been living on sort of a Buddhist commune in Montana. He left New York, he was in Montana, he was moving to Boulder. He knew he was coming to Boulder. He was very familiar with our work through Server 13 and Joy Engine. Joy Engine was a art and design boutique we had in front of our studio, Server 13. We sold original art, our friends' art, apparel. We also sold Kid Robot toys, and we were toy aficionados of sort, designer toys, so Paul knew about us, but we never formally met. So Paul made a visit to Boulder thinking he wanted to live there, reached out to us, said, I have a lot of design work to do, I love your aesthetic, you guys seem cool, let's hang out and see if this can work. So we met Paul, it seemed like we'd be a good fit. Paul was getting ready to sell Kid Robot and launch a new bicycle company called Budnitz Bicycles. So he hired us to conceive his brand image and design his website and help work on the bicycle design and sort of innumerable brand-related things. And we really hit it off, we had a lot of fun. We pushed Paul really far, challenged him in a way he hadn't been challenged before. That proved to be really rewarding to him, and we got to a really good place, and we launched Budnitz Bicycles very closely with Paul, and the company took off, and it was super successful, and Paul's kind of killing it with that company, and so this is about, what, 4 years ago now? It took a couple years to get Budnitz Bicycles really dialed, and so through that process, Paul said, you know, that was fucking awesome, I haven't done anything like this, let's make another company together. You, Lucian, and I, outside of Mighty Elephant, which is Paul's independent company, and outside of Berger and Föhr, let's make another company. And we're like, well, what are we gonna do? And he's like, I don't know, let's just like, we meet every week, so let's add an extra lunch to every week, and let's start talking about what we might do. So we started doing that, and I think we went to a few lunches. We hadn't really figured it out. One day Paul showed up and he's like, social networking is totally fucked, and let's make a social network. We're like, Lucian and I talk about that all the time. Maybe we could do that. Sounds cool. It's totally fucking crazy. Okay, we'll try. So this is like 18 months ago, maybe 20 months ago, we started conceiving of what is now Ello visually and began designing a social network. We got pretty far along in the design, as far as we could go, and realized that we couldn't really envision this thing without building a prototype. So Lucian and I kind of started chatting about that, putting our heads together, and we were like, Paul, you know, we'll figure this out. And so the first team that came to mind was Modeset. So Jay and Matt are in the back, and for those of you that have seen Ello, those two dudes are the back end and the front end, and they're the real masterminds behind making this thing work and function. So we reached out to those guys and said, hey, our buddy Paul has teamed up with us. We're trying to do something kind of crazy. Can we come down and pitch you guys this idea and see if you want to get involved? We don't have any money. It's going to take a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears in essence to get it moving, but we think we can get it moving. We think we can get some money. We think we can make something really fucking transformative and super cool. So Lucian and I went down and pitched to Jay and Matt and Gabe and Justin. In essence, pitched, and we don't pitch, so it was kind of nerve-wracking, and we only know these guys so well at this time. I knew Jay, I knew Justin, knew of Matt, knew of Gabe from mutual friends, but didn't really know them well. So we went down there, we pitched this idea to them, and Lucian thought it went well. We went out and had drinks. drinks, you know, all hit it off as a team, really liked one another. On the drive home, I'm like, fuck, we fucked that up. Like, I don't know if I sold that idea well. It's a really good idea. I just think we kind of fucked it up. And then I think it was, I don't know, Jay, I think it was like 6:30 in the morning the next day. It's pretty early. Jay called and he's like, dude, we're in. Let's do this shit. So that was pretty awesome and pretty crazy. And so we got to work. We started building Elo with ModeSet. And how long ago was that?
15 months ago?
So 15 months ago. Have a lot of you seen Elo? Have you guys seen what we're doing? Yeah? Some of you have? Okay, cool. And the bigger premise behind that was that the sale of your data. Okay, sure. So
We have a manifesto.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit. So why don't you read it because my voice stinks.
Your social network.
By advertisers.
Every post you share, every friend you make, every link you follow is tracked, recorded, and converted into data. Advertisers buy your data so they can show you more ads. You are the product that's bought and sold. We believe there's a better way. We believe in audacity. We believe in beauty, simplicity, and transparency. We believe that the people who make things and the people who use them should be in partnership. We believe a social network can be a tool for empowerment, not a tool to deceive, coerce, and manipulate, but a place to connect, create, and celebrate life. You are not a product.
That was really the principle behind Elo. We thought that the sale of your data and pumping ads in front of us was super fucked up. And we've always thought that. And I've never personally been on any social network as an individual for that reason. Previously, we've done the majority of our social networking as a team, as Berger and Föhr. Lucian was on Facebook to connect with friends and family, but when Paul brought this up, we thought there was a better way to do this, and that a paradigm shift in how people use social and thought about social on the internet was necessary, and that it was coming, and that people should pay for things they love. Free shit tends to suck, and people tend to fuck you when they give you free shit. And that's what Facebook does, and that's what Tumblr does, and that's what everyone does. They sell your data to whoever will buy it, and then those people serve you ads, or continue to sell your data further down the road to whomever will buy it, so they can fuck you later. And if you don't realize that, you should be a little embarrassed. Sorry. But that's what happens. So that was really the premise behind building Elo. Atop that, we thought we could make an art space and an art place where people could share art and ideas and communicate about their ideas and their art and their craft and whatever it is they make in new and valuable, interesting ways. So as a team, this is what we're striving for. So we released this product pretty early. The product vision is actually a lot larger than what you see. There's lots of features that are very complex. Jay and Matt are doing a pretty exceptional job of managing those and contributing to how we figure out what to do in what order, when. It's pretty tricky. We all have other clients and other projects happening, but we're putting a lot of effort into this thing, and we believe in it, and we think it could be really very transformative.
Yeah, I guess I'll just take you guys through that product. I'll just go from the top. From a design standpoint, this is pretty much no compromise, no lowest common denominator design, which is a dream for us and what no one else can do because of a lot of what Todd just talked about. So it's only black and white. We just try to make a neutral space for content. We don't scale anyone's photos. If you put in a huge photo, we show your huge photo. If you put in a GIF, we play your GIF. So from the top, our logo, and this is interesting as a identity studio, there is no logo type. There is only a symbol. The only place that says Elo is in the URL and in your prompt. This is the omnibar. So that's a kind of interesting project for us because we would probably never recommend a client to do that, but we are going to do that.
on the left, we have another main premise why social networking got fucked up. It's because everyone had a social obligation to follow all the friends they weren't really friends with, your family, whatever. So we have a binary sort called friends and noise. No one knows which bucket you put them in, so it's only up to you. Friends are ideas that you focus on the person and the content, so we show everything large. No, we don't show anyone's name. We're hoping that if you're friends with them, you can recognize their photo and what they choose to represent themselves by. And then noise, where you can put everyone else, is a fluid grid, where the focus is more on the content and less on the actual person. So this is glanceable, as we say. You can quickly scroll through and see what everyone's up to. The omnibar, everything happens in here. You can just drag and drop. I don't know if we have any. You can drag and drop. You can make emojis. You can drag in GIFs. We're going to add audio, video, all of that. Right now, you can see how many views a post got. You can comment. We just released commenting last week. Okay. Underscore and. You can edit a comment, you can edit your posts. So another thing lots of networks don't let you do, which is absurd. So that's pretty much it. It's very simple, and that's the idea. And we don't, this isn't all the features like Todd said. We have a roadmap to get a few other things out. You'll be able to love things and bookmark them, repost, and share out to other networks. There'll also be private messaging, potentially. And then beyond that, we might build further features that you might want, and if you want it, you can pay for it, but we're not going to roll it out to everyone. So we won't just jam a bunch of features that you don't want to use into this interface and into your face. So we always come back to the tagline, simple, beautiful, and ad-free. So every decision we make as a team is this as simple as we can make it? There's not going to be ads, so that's a pretty easy decision for us to make. And is it going to be beautiful? So, that's a little bit about yeah, Melissa. How will we make it profitable? So the premise is so we're in beta right now, and we're going to stay in beta for a while. We have a pretty big list of people that want to use the product, so we're inviting people slowly, very methodically, because we are developing the product real time. So Jay and Matt and Gabe and Justin and Ryan and the rest of the team at ModeSet are doing lots of work every day. We're updating the site every day, and we're very concerned about scale and what happens when we add people quickly. So we're adding people slowly, and we're really trying to create an environment where community can evolve and create itself in a very positive way, and where people will learn to do the right thing. And if we grow the product slowly, the environment slowly, and people come on slowly, they will learn slowly at the appropriate rate how this community works and how to behave and how to keep it super cool and super forward and avoid us policing it. So we're moving slow, and then we're going to hit a point, most likely, where we come out of beta, which means we have the feature set that we want to perpetuate the product's growth, and at that time we'll add the ability to buy features to customize the experience. Like if you take a product like Facebook and it's 1.5 billion users, or whatever the number is now, 1.4 or something, the product is designed ubiquitously for everyone. And the lowest common denominator, people in India on super old laptops with super little monitors, screen displays, and very shitty internet, really dictates the experience, and that's totally not right. You should be able to dictate the experience in any way you want in an environment like this. So what we believe is we put forth this environment as sort of a baseline environment, like very similar to a freemium video game type environment, and then you customize it to your needs by buying features and experiences that change it to make it work better for you. And they're inexpensive things, $1 for this,
50 cents for that, $2.50 a month for this service. Maybe it's some sort of chat service, video chat or something. So we have a long list of features that we intend to roll out in sort of an app store model that people can buy to customize the LO experience. But we're pretty far from doing that, so we have a long way to go to develop the product to get it to where we feel it's a proper product that can support that. That's the next level. Like that notion that if you want this thing to be good and honest and transparent, and you want us to protect your data, not sell it, not serve you ads, you're going to have to pay to offset that. Otherwise, you're going to keep using a product like Facebook, where they're just going to keep selling your data and keep serving you ads. And the focus of a product like that is to extract money from you in hidden ways, not transparent ways. And so we want to do that and shepherd the environment into the future in the right way to avoid that. It's certainly not an easy task. I'm not going to say we have it totally figured out. I mean, there's...
But even if you want to use it exactly as Tumblr, as you probably know, consuming content through Tumblr's dashboard sucks. Yeah. And if all your friends want to post nice stuff, consuming through here, we hope is a much better experience. In terms of convincing your mother to get on this, luckily, we actually don't have to convince too many people to use this for it to be a seriously big and hopefully profitable network. Less than 1% of Facebook would make us so happy. So that's why when we said least, it's not for the common denominator. Our strategy right now is content creators, followed by curators, followed by followers. So right now we specifically did desktop first, not mobile first, in the age of mobile first everything, because we don't want pictures of your baby or your cat. We love cats, but we want high quality content. So we want the makers that are sitting in front of computers most of the time, taking photos, designing things, what have you, so they can put it into this platform. And then down the road, it'll dilute. And that's fine. We also just want to build a platform, and we want people to use it however they want. We're just trying to sort of build the community at the beginning. Right now it's invite only, so you can only get on to someone inviting you. So we're trying to build it in a certain way, and eventually it can just serve as a platform.
But we can't just come out and attack the Facebooks and the Tumblrs, the Yahoos, with their ad models and their data sale models, because they're very revenue generating, and generating revenue is people like that. People think that's sort of the pinnacle of society, making a lot of money at all costs. It's sort of sad. People don't really realize the ramifications of it. So it's not an overnight thing. Like when we went down this road, we're like, really? We're gonna fucking go down this road? Because this is serious, and like it's a serious deviation for our studio. It's a big deviation for Moza. It's a huge commitment. Like we're trying to change the way most people in the world that use the internet think about the internet. It's gonna be challenging.
What's Moza? Can you spell that?
Moza. So Jay can speak in the blue shirt with his Moza logo on his chest. Jay, why don't you say something about Moza?
Yeah, so we're sort of the technology counterpart to these guys, but we're a technology focused basically sold to technical implementation, sort of the technical leadership and technical skills to any technology project.
It's technical.
It is. They build it. We build front ends and back ends and sort of provide that implementation side for folks like these guys and a variety of other startups. We're technical.
You guys had a hand in the crazy arcade thing too, right?
Yep. Yeah, we did the heck yeah street arcade in downtown Denver. Yeah, thank you.
Do you have a specific stack that you do?
It's sort of all. It's all
Do
over the
whatever
place.
works.
Yeah, it's
Jay, why don't you lay out the LO stack real quickly?
Yeah, sure, totally. So the LO stack is Ruby and Rails, custom JavaScript front end. We're not using that specific framework. We sort of built something that's a little bit more specific to those with interactions. Hosted on Heroku, Postgres backend. I'm trying to think of anything else I'm missing at the moment.
SendGrid's in there.
SendGrid's in there. We pump out a lot of emails from that thing.
about Ella. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, no problem.
Did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No, go for it. I was just gonna say.
So yeah, we just wanted to talk about that because it's a big part of what the studio's doing right now.
And if you're not on, I'm going to stay sitting at this computer. If you come and tell me your email, I will send you an invite right now and give you a sticker. So,
It's pretty sweet, you should get on it.
You guys got stickers?
We do have stickers. But so I realized
T-shirts at some point.
that took longer to get through the work and then talking about Ella than we thought, but we might be of value in other ways if anyone has questions or other things that we didn't necessarily cover earlier. Discussion. Anyone?
Question.
Yes.
I actually have a question, kind of unrelated to what we have been talking about, but just based on your experience, your confidence in your work, and your process, and your body of work, do you guys do like other things for mentoring, for instance? Do you mentor younger generations to kind of
So
develop that process and whatnot?
we do. So to some degree, I mentored Lucian. I started working with Lucian through high school. I didn't know where that was going to go. We've mentored another young designer named Owen Dodd, who's actually leaving the studio soon to go back to New York. He lived in New York previously. We have done it on an individual level with people that we believe are talented. But right now we're not spending a lot of time teaching young people because we're very focused on continuing to learn and grow ourselves.
Even one's good.
What's that?
I said even one is good.
Yeah, and I went through a few before meeting Lucian. So, but yeah, it's not really a focus of the studio right now.
But we have student groups come visit. That's how we met some of the people here. So people come visit, and we speak at some schools if we're invited. But that's, we were invited to teach a class recently, but we don't have the bandwidth for that.
This might be like a little lowbrow, but I saw you guys speak at Cafe in the Morning, and you have a very similar presentation deck. Do you guys always use that, and how did you land on that?
No, but we did start with the same deck for this one. But that was the first time we sort of reused it. But we kind of like that, actually. We recently saw this artist speak at VMocha, who's in there right now. And he had a hilarious PowerPoint presentation that at first he was skipping through the slides, and I was like, don't skip, like I want to see everything. But by the end, I noticed he had 400 slides, so he just continues to add. It's basically just chronological order of all his work, and it's just the one thing that he continues to update. He just talks about what he wants to talk about that day. Kind of like that strategy. So yeah, we sort of truncated the cafe morning, but we wanted to change it up a little bit, and then mainly get to Ella. So that's not totally, it might be a new strategy, but it hasn't really been a previous strategy.
Maybe a compound of that is, how would you advise someone to land on a good presentation?
I was going to ask you the same thing. Did you like that? I mean, because there's like we could go way into process, right? We just glanced over it. We could go way into our relationship. We could go way into like graphic designers that have influenced us historically over the last 100 years. We could just talk about triangles for like an hour. We could talk about how we communicate with Jay and Matt and build an interactive product. Like all of these things are like multi-hour conversations, so it's hard. So we figured, and we kind of blow this a little bit every time. We try to make something condensed to legitimize ourselves, I guess, and say we've done some shit, and then open it up to a conversation like this, because this is far more interesting to us. Like, us just talking about our work, frankly, seems fucking stupid. Like, we made the work, it's done, we're just moving forward as a studio. That's like our philosophy. So it's nice if people like it, but it's not so valuable. I mean, it's not so valuable to us. So what do you think, I mean, about that approach?
I think it's great. I am particularly interested in the design of it because, like Frankie and I, we do presentations occasionally, and it's always like just struggling to figure out how to present the material that, like, it's hard to focus on presentation itself.
Yeah, you're very close to it, and while
That's
That's it.
yeah,
all our presentations are on this grid.
very much, and would get into our process, but all we really do with every project is make rules. And then we make more rules, and then we make more rules, until the work for us is really easy. So preparing a presentation, we kind of have set the grid, we've selected a typeface, we've selected a color motif, the composition size is determined, we know the column width, we scale the content to it, we're like, we just start creating limitations to make it sort of easy, I guess.
And we're pretty strict about our rules in the studio. If a rule's not working, you have to break it. We don't break it, we scrap that rule. It means the rule was broken, so we need to build a new rule. And particularly, we do lots of print, design, all of BMOCA's catalogs, and reports, and they're very strict rules. And it's interesting because it's similar content, but somehow every year there's something that doesn't work in the rules. So while we want them to look similar, we redefine those rules to make sure it works for all the content.
Another question. You said in the very beginning that sometimes you spend more time on the presentation than the work, right? So obviously, when you went through one concept idea, you were thinking, okay, we really need them to understand why this is so important. What sort of things, give us an example if you could, of a project where there was a lot of time spent on the presentation because we really wanted them to understand why this is good.
So I guess not similar to where we just use the same template like this. For all of our identity presentations, those are on the same template. And they typically go in the same order, and they can be 60 to 100 pages. And there's writing on every page. And we only present in person or video, and we read every word that we wrote. So a lot of the writing takes us a long time. It's as detailed as we chose to typeset your logo in all caps, or a capital first letter, or all lowercase, based on, for all caps, we want to make a consistent block of type, to reach this goal. We selected a sans serif versus a serif. What's the difference between those? So we try to make, where every decision we made, we try to explain that decision. So by the time we're done with these elaborate presentations, the client feels like they almost made that decision too, and it helps a lot with the one solution. Because it should, our whole goal is that it should feel obvious. By the time we're done, it should feel like the obvious solution. And at the end, if it doesn't feel like that to them, we probably fucked it up. And hopefully, it was because they didn't tell us something. And that was more their fault. So sometimes we do.
Yeah, and when you're presenting one thing, you really have to explain all your thoughts. So sometimes a solution comes to us, and it's a bit of an epiphany, and it's a very simple thing, but it's usage and execution and time that are going to make it work. So we have to explain how that's going to happen.
Are you sort of capturing that as you go, or it's just because there's only some cue you can kind of go back and remember, but this is why
that dialogue is running, so as we're preparing the presentation, the words are arising, but we prepare the whole presentation, then we come back through and we write all the words. So I think the longest one we made was about 160 pages.
And we constantly have to defend the idea to each other. So if Todd says, why, that doesn't make sense, whatever, I have to defend it to Todd. So through that process, we're really building that, I don't want to call it an argument, but that explanation.
And maybe it doesn't seem like it, I don't know, but we're pretty hard on each other. The environment in the studio it's not always nice. We're nice riding our bikes or having breakfast, but at work, today was a particularly fucked up day. We argued the first half of the day. Some shit came up with Mozart and our partner Paul, and all of us were a little pissed about something. And that happens every day, but we just move through that. That's part of it. That's part of what makes it exciting. And without sounding egotistical, I think that's part of being a pro. If you don't care and it doesn't hurt sometimes, it's not important.
When you guys are super angry at each other, how do you smooth things out?
I think we usually just kind of wait.
Yeah, I go get a cookie. That's totally.
To put it in perspective, I didn't go to lunch today with Lucian.
We ate separately.
He said, "Are you going to lunch?" I'm like, "I might meet you." They came back, and I'm like, "I'm going to lunch now." And after that, and it was just a series of circumstances that, I mean, we're aligned 99% of the time. When we're not, it's usually because of a personal failing, not because of the work. Like, it's a bigger issue internally, and it's frustrating. So we just kind of let it sort out, and if we have to, we shout it out or discuss it more gently. But 11 years is a pretty long time to spend most of your waking hours with someone, so we've got it kind of under wraps to some degree.
And sometimes we argue over the most nuanced, crazy shit that, you know, in the grand scheme of things is not.
Yeah.
Lowercase a.
You sound like my wife and I.
Kerning is a big thing. Yeah.
So, I guess like let's just wrap up with that. Does you guys have any last words or anything you want to wrap up?
No, like I said, I'm going to sit right here. So if you want to get on that, come talk.
Do you mind if I ask one more question?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
In regards to Ella, does this kind of feel like a natural extension of your product work and like your experience, your fluency with your client work, or is this like stepping into a totally different realm with product development?
It doesn't feel like that. So before Berger and Föhr, we had a studio called Cypher 13, and when we launched Cypher 13, which was my second studio, Lucian had been with me since the first. We launched a separate entity called Joy Engine, which was it had a physical manifestation as a boutique and an art gallery in front of our studio, but it was also an online community. It was a multi-person blog where we had about, at its peak, about 30 authors.
An early blog, like
Early.
we hand-coded every post. There was no.
Yeah, and it had a lot of people liked it, got a lot of views. It was, had we stuck with it, it would have been a real big deal blog now. For some reason, it began to feel trite and stupid, and we had to get away from it because we wanted to focus on our work, and it was taking a lot of our time. Maybe that was naive, maybe that was smart, I don't know, but we've always been focused on this idea of community. So in tandem of Joy Engine, while Joy Engine was a physical shop and boutique literally in front of our studio, it was an example of a living brand that we created, and it was an art gallery. It also had events in the space. Monthly we had DJs and we had art openings and we had parties that would overtake our whole studio. So we've always believed in the notion of creating a creative space where people can express themselves and influence one another and in new ways that tend to not arise on their own. And so Joy Engine was that thing, and in many ways Elo feels like a more contemporary iteration of that, albeit with maybe larger values, trying to change some things that aren't right, that we think we could at least start shifting in a better direction. So it does feel pretty natural. It's pretty intense in terms of its impacts on the studio. The studio was very chill 15, 18 months ago. Work was coming in, we were doing really well, we were enjoying it. Shit's pretty intense now. But it's awesome. I mean, it's just like we have a product out there in the world, there's people using it, people loving it, there's a handful of people hating it. That's part of the process. We've got pretty thick skin from being critiqued over the years, so we believe in it, Jay believes in it, Matt believes in it, our partners believe in it, like a lot of people in this room believe in it, so it's pretty easy to put our heads down and charge forward and do our client work and work on LO and just kind of see where we go. That's our path right now. I guess that's it.